Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Inside the SkillPanel 2026 Workforce Intelligence Report. We've got a very exciting webinar planned for you today, but before we get started, I've got three very quick housekeeping things to get through. So first of all, please get involved. This is an interactive session, so there will be some polls, there will be a Q&A at the end, so we strongly encourage you to partake in both of those. The webinar is also being recorded, so if for some reason you can't make it to the end or you'd like to share it with one of your colleagues, you can do so with the recording link, which will be published on our YouTube channel tomorrow and sent to you by email as well. Also, if you're only watching us on LinkedIn, you'll receive an email message there. And last but not least, we not long ago, about an hour and a half ago, for everybody who's registered on Zoom, we've sent you actually an early copy of the report that we're about to go through today. So if you'd like to follow along with the report, I'll be making references to the page numbers and where the statistics and stuff are coming from. So feel free to do so. For everybody else, this report will be being published tomorrow, so you can get access to the report. It's completely free. It'll be on our website tomorrow. So quick run through of our agenda. So I will, in just a moment, introduce our panelists, give you guys a little bit more information about what this report is, the SkillPanel Workforce Intelligence Report, a quick run through of what we covered, and then we're going to break down into sort of the different sections that are in the report and some interesting statistics that we've come up with across the SkillPanel platform for 2026. As I mentioned, there will be some polls, some discussion, and we do have time at the end for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, fire your questions in there, and we'll save some time at the end for that. Okay, so now, Simon, it might be time to introduce our panelists. So I'm going to start with you, Pavel. I know this is your first webinar with us, so can you give us a quick introduction about yourself, please?
Yeah, hello guys, hello everybody. I'm Paweł Zdziech. I'm from Warsaw. I hope that there are some more sunny places where you're watching this webinar than Warsaw is today. My professional background is recruitment and development in the IT sector. So hello to everybody from IT. And in SkillPanel, I'm helping companies to better develop their people through a skills-based approach. Basically, that's what I do. Together with Nick, I'm in one team. Had the pleasure to collaborate with him.
Pleasure to have you, and pleasure to have you part of SkillPanel as well. Nick, could you give us a quick introduction about yourself, please?
Yeah, I've been in customer success here at SkillPanel. Sorry, SkillPanel now for the last almost 7 years. Customer success at the start, and then later as head of customer success, now head of customer success support and a little bit of sales as well. So yeah, for pretty much working in tech for this time, working with recruitment professionals with the IT technical assessments first, and then over to skills-based management later.
Sure. Thank you both very much for that. Very quickly, my name is Justin Lesser. I'm the marketing director here at SkillPanel. I will just very quickly say SkillPanel was formerly known as DevSkiller. So if you know us as DevSkiller, that's completely fine. We rebranded really recently. That was only at the end of September. So for the past couple of months, we've been SkillPanel. Basically, we have the same great platform that we had sort of two tools, the talent acquisition side and the skills management side, and we've combined them into one platform. And it's also a good way to open up about what we're going to talk about in the report. So the unique thing about this report, we've produced about 7, I believe, BI reports. Since 2019, we published our first report. Slowly over that time, and if you know these reports, you could see the sort of development over time of how these have changed. So we were very focused on talent acquisition, tech recruitment. That was basically because we had the one software, which was the technical screening software. But over time, and when what was called Talent Boost came about, we started diving deeper into this sort of skills management space, skills intelligence space. And then obviously with the sort of rounding out of our platform, we've managed to put together a report which is based on all of the data from our platform, but specifically in 6 key areas. So these are skill composition, which we're going to get to very shortly, skills assessment, skill gaps, internal mobility, reskilling and upskilling, and succession planning. And that's basically the 6 sections of this report. This webinar is designed around that report. So we have a couple of data points from each of those sections. So we're very excited to get stuck into those. As I mentioned at the beginning, this report will be available tomorrow. And for those of you who sign up on Zoom, you should already have that sitting in your inbox. So check your inbox, it's there. But before we begin, I do want to launch a very quick poll, and I encourage everybody to get involved. I'll just launch this one on your screen Now, so the question here is, how confident are you in your current visibility into skills across your workforce? Very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, no visibility at all, or unsure. And of course, we're going to be talking about skill visibility a lot today. And the very first portion of this conversation, we're going to be talking about skill coverage. So this is just to open up our discussion and sort of get a better idea of who we're talking to today. Almost all of you have voted. It's quite good. So I might end the poll and share the results, which will be visible on your screen now. So how confident are you in your current visibility into skills across your workforce? 53% of you voted for somewhat confident, 41% of you voted for not very confident, and 6% voted for very confident. Very promising to see no visibility at all was not voted for, I'm sure. So that's good to see. But we're somewhere in the middle by the looks of things, which is great to see. And it is actually going to open up our first question, first data point here, which is something which we call job position fit. So this is in the very first section of the report, but basically we can see 68% job position fit, which is the skills required for roles for a given job role. And the question I want to ask you here, Pavel, is what does it actually mean, and what are the ramifications for organizations with employees that don't have the skills that fully cover their role?
Yeah, that's a fundamental question and a great question, actually. It can mean a lot of things, but unfortunately, all of these things are not very positive, to be honest. So at the most basic level, if your skills, if the skills match in your organization is high enough, it can mean lower performance at the level of individual, at the level of a team, and also at the level of on the whole organization. And the degree of this low performance, of this misperformance, the degree of the match is really fundamental, because in some cases, in a more positive case, so to speak, it can mean just lower performance, suboptimal performance. But in most extreme cases, in cases like key position or core skill in a company, it can really ruin your business. So just imagine you're having a restaurant. I know, Justin, you're entering the restaurant business soon. So imagine if your top chef in your restaurant doesn't know how to cook a proper spaghetti, if it's an Italian restaurant. If he burns the spaghetti once in a while, soon it will be a disaster for the reputation of your company, for opinions about your restaurant. Let's say you're an owner of an airline. So you would definitely require your pilots to have their core skills at much higher level than 68%. Some additional skills, some optional skills, well, these may reduce your performance. Of course, there's this pilot, and when the pilot doesn't speak 5 foreign languages, that's okay. He won't be entertaining the passengers as he might have. But if he doesn't know how to do with the cockpit, then you are in real
In
trouble.
trouble.
And imagine if you have 100 pilots in your organization, what it means for the business continuity. But that's just not the only consequence, the sub-performance or business continuity. Lower than expected skills match is also organizational inefficiency, in a way that in any group there are some people who are well skilled, and it will be them to whom people will come for advice, will come for some small tasks. So sooner or later, it will create bottlenecks in the organization. These people will be heavily loaded with some additional tasks, so they will get frustrated and they may leave in time. Low skills match is also bad talent decisions, because when you don't have full coverage of the skills, or if you don't see the skills within your organization, then your managers may either overestimate or underestimate your people based on some recent vague impressions. So it may create really bad people decisions in the company and some frustration.
Mhm.
So a lot of negative things. If there is any positive thing, if you really
I could, yeah, yeah. I was going to say I was going to say that from the positive side, of course, 68% is in terms of job position fit is a good number, but that remaining 32% also presents an opportunity for discussions for personal development from a manager to their team. Also, upskilling opportunities, so learning opportunities. So this visibility of the skills fundamentally provides the insight into, okay, here's where we are, here's where we're struggling, here's what we need to do. So in a sense, it is an opportunity. It's in the sense that you can provide these reskilling and upskilling opportunities, provide the sort of framework for your people to develop, tie these into sort of, performance-based things like promotion or salary raise or something like that. So it gives you this flexibility and really the option to do that access. I say so that's the reverse side of the coin, I would say. But I'm not sure, Pavel, do
Y-
you want anything else there, or Nick?
Yeah, I was going to say that what Justin said is relevant. You by defining this role, it gives people a more clear path on what they need to improve. So knowing that they have these gaps against what their role expects, they know what they need to learn. And in other cases, if they don't know what the gaps are, you're just in the blind. You're
Yep,
flying in the dark.
yep,
So
yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, thank you both. We'll move on. Basically, what we've done here, this is the same metric but broken down uh, by apologies. That's not the same metric. This is our breakdown of skill composition by department. So what we're looking at here is core, additional, and optional skills. I'll explain them very quickly before we jump into your takeaway here, Nick. Basically, we're looking at core skills as the core fundamental skills to do an individual's job role. What we call additional skills are otherwise known as nice to have skills. So these are skills that can help with the role, but they're not necessarily sorry, optional skills are these skills which can help with the role, but they're not essential to do the role. And then additional skills, which is the sort of most interesting part, we're going to get to this later in the discussion, are skills that are completely outside of the role. So say, for example, I'm a developer, but I have skills in Photoshop. That would class as an additional skill. Photoshop has nothing to do with my role as a Java developer. However, in our platform, you can map these skills. And basically, I wanted to speak to you, Nick, about what we did here. We broke this down by department. What stands out to you here by departments? We looked at technology, engineering, data and analytics, human resources, operations, marketing, sales. What's your biggest takeaway here?
It really looks like a graph of specialists versus generalists. So these tech roles, you need deep specialization to excel and to contribute well. And in the other roles, I would say human resources make sense being right in the middle because you do need some specialization, but you don't need that deep technical expertise that tech roles, engineering, data analytics need. And in marketing sales, much more generalist. So a marketing person might be doing content writing, but they might also be working on SEO and some other portions of the marketing stack. And the same
Yeah,
with sales. So sales in AE, an account executive is doing sales work. So he's talking to customers or talking to potential opportunities and leads, but they also are doing some kind of sales operations as well. Just by logging all of their data, they're doing something in the operations area. So
yeah,
that's the main thing I would take away from this is specialist versus generalist is what we're looking at, and you would expect marketing, sales, operations, kind of, I guess, makes sense
yeah,
in this context.
yeah,
But yeah, tech and engineering, data analytics, very specialist paths. This
yeah.
is what I would take away from this.
Yeah, sure, sure. Okay. I will now jump into our next poll. Thanks very much for that response there, Nick. And this is going to appear on your screen now. And it's going to open up the next portion, next couple of questions in our discussion. The question here is, how similar do you think employees' views of their own skills are compared to how their managers see them? Very closely, somewhat closely, not at all, or unsure? And without giving too much away, we track this so we can tell you in just a moment. But I want to get a feel for what everybody's thinking before we do so. And yes, we'll continue on. I'm going to let it run a little bit longer. If you're just listening on another screen, please cast a vote. It's just over half of you have voted. Okay, I will end the poll and share results, which should appear on your screen now. So, how similar do you think employees' views of their own skills are compared to how their managers see them? Somewhat closely, with 55% of you, 30% for not closely, unsure, and very closely for 10% of you. So, the majority of you said somewhat closely, which is very interesting. And it will, as I said, be answered in just a moment. Here it is. Here we're talking about something we call the perception gap, which is basically where we compared self-assessment results versus supervisor assessment results or manager assessment results. Basically, we call this the perception gap. What we see here is self-assessment, meaning so when every employee that logs onto SkillPanel, the very first thing they do is rate their own skills, and the aggregate score of that was 65%. We did the exact same thing. We aggregated all of the supervisor assessments for the past year, and we landed with 42%. Question here is simple, and for you, Nick, why the big gap?
Well, first, I would say that it's largely because employees are looking at their inputs rather than what comes from their inputs, and the managers are looking at the outcome of these inputs. So a person is more likely to rate themselves higher in a skill because they put a lot of effort there. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have more of a skill. Uh, but yeah, you want to present well, and you probably have confidence in your abilities, so you will rate yourself higher than expected usually. You round up, right? Rather
Yeah,
than round
yeah,
down. You're not going to round down on yourself. And the manager is looking at outcomes. So they're looking at your projects, how you're performing on the projects, what kind of things you're contributing, and that's what they're usually assessing you on. Um, I've done this myself with team members in the past, and it's it's easy to rate yourself as an expert in something, in something you're not quite an expert, I'll say.
yeah,
Generally, the response is good. If you have a good relationship with your team members and you rate them lower than what they rate themselves, they're looking for ways to improve that skill afterwards. They're not asking, "Oh my God, I'm going to get fired because he rated me lower than than I expected or thought I was." It's
yeah.
how do I improve in this area? So it's not a negative, I would say, for the employee to rate themselves lower than the manager. This can turn into a very positive
Positive. Yeah,
development experience for the employees.
yeah. I was going to in our history in technical recruitment, I would liken this to someone preparing a CV. And when you prepare your CV, you tend to be a little bit more, you know, positive about your experience or your knowledge in certain things. And it's the exact same thing when we obviously this is broken down on your role. This is identified these skills that you need to assess. Obviously, you're going to lean towards the higher end than the lower end. But again, this is an opportunity, as we said from the first point. It isn't a huge gap. Okay, it's 23%. It's not a lot. It's also uh, something that you can use in these performance reviews and open up a conversation when you're talking with your manager. My manager thinks I'm here. I think I'm here. Let's have a discussion. What am I missing? It's a great way to sort of open up the discussion about where I need to develop as an employee, or perhaps where a manager's potentially overlooking something that they're not realizing that someone on their team is doing. So it really works both ways, which I think is quite a powerful thing. Um, I'll move along, but Pavel, you look like you wanted to jump in there, or should we move along?
Yeah, I think we can move along.
Sure. So
Uh,
this was the graph that I was talking about before, where we basically did the same metric, but we broke that down by domain. So some domains show much larger perception gaps than others, basically either low, medium, or high. This time we only looked at technology, data analytics, marketing and sales, and human resources. Pavel, what's your takeaway here? Why do you think we see the perception gap differing over departments?
yeah, I would apply the same um, dichotomy that Nick applied before between technical roles and more soft roles. I would say that the general assumption is that, at least that's my take on that is that the more technical the role, the more technical the domain, the easier it is for a manager and an employee to be on the same page when it comes to skills assessment.
Hmm.
As I said, I worked in recruitment for some time, and it was always much easier for me to rate some harder recruitment skills like Boolean search operators knowledge. This was either you know it or don't know it. Whereas communication, giving feedback, this was always a little problematic, and there were different interpretations, and usually the interpretations of employees were much more positive than the interpretation of a manager. So the
Hmm.
first thing is that the more technical the domain, the easier it is for calibration between manager and employee. Marketing and sales, yeah, you need to be a little overconfident when you work in marketing and sales. Don't get me wrong, Justin, but whereas in technology, 1+1 is usually it needs to be two.
Yeah.
Then in marketing and sales, 1+1 sometimes it's okay if it's three.
Equals donut. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that maybe that's why we have this over optimism of people's self-assessment. When it comes
Hmm.
to HR, that gave me a pause for starter. But then when I thought about it, well, HR people do assessments for living. They do assessments every day. Even during recruitment interviews, they somehow calibrate. They rate people. So maybe they are better prepared to give accurate assessments. And we should not forget that HR is not about just employer branding or communication. There
No.
are some harder sub areas within HR like labor law, payroll, HR analytics. So this may explain
Yeah.
why we observe relatively low mismatch between
Yeah.
self-assessments of employees and managers' assessment.
Yeah. Great summary. Yeah, I think with you, as you said, with HR, that's I think both from the perspective of doing these sorts of assessments, probably might be a little bit more honest with themselves as well. You can imagine because having to do this for day in day out, this is probably why it's reflected here as low across the board. Thank you very much for that, Pavel. We are going to jump into our next sort of question and next section of the report. So this particular statistic is taken from section 3 of the report, which is on skill gaps. I forgot to mention, I was going to mention page numbers if you are following along in the report. This is from page number 12. What we looked at here was the average missing core skills per employees. Before I gave you those definitions of core, optional, and additional, and I see the question in the Q&A, we'll get to that later. We do have a lot on that, so I'll share some information on that later. But the takeaway here is that core skill gaps remain a major challenge. On average, 4.7 per employee. Nick, what's the practical implication of employees missing core skill gaps?
Um, yeah, so it's there's a couple factors here. If some of the employees have all of the core skills or have these core skills that are missing and the other employees don't, Pavel mentioned earlier about burnout from these employees. So everyone comes to John, say John has all of the skills for his role, and John is constantly being asked to pick up the slack where other people don't have these skills. So you can create burnout or a perception of this person is too costly to lose. And normal turnover can turn into a danger, right, for the team. So you would create the potential project delays. Teams can be, like I said, teams can be heavily reliant on a few people that do have the skills. And if those people who have all of the skills are constantly asked, "Hey, can you come help with this one project in this one area?" Uh, they can burn out and they can leave the company. So you're creating a risk of attrition,
Hmm.
essentially with this. Yeah. But overall,
Yeah,
it's business risk, right? You don't have the skills to complete the task, then you end up having risk is the biggest takeaway, I would say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I should point out as well that we aggregated all of the skill data on our platform basically. So obviously some job roles have many more skills than other job roles, especially when we talk about specialization and as you did before, Nick. So 4.7 on average was taken across all of the domains, all of the job roles, and we aggregated that all down into one number. But again, this is always an opportunity as well, because without this visibility, you don't know that you need to address these skill gaps basically, and then you're kind of in the dark all the time, which is an issue. The other part of this as well is when you talk about people leaving the company, those skills go with them. So if someone had a particular skill, say you're only a small team, and someone is the one person in your team knows this entire portion of whatever you're doing, that person leaves, their skills go with them. This also contributes here to when you say that the skill gap is missing. So an
You,
opportunity as well, not a negative. Yeah.
yeah, you don't just lose the core skills, you lose institutional knowledge. So
Yep. Yep.
they know the company, they know the culture, they know customers, everything goes with them.
Yep.
So
100%. And we are going to actually, it's a nice segue because we are going to start talking a little bit about internal mobility and succession planning. It's kind of the last portion of our discussion. And this is the final poll for our discussion as well. So I will launch this poll on your screen in a moment. Should be appearing there now. And the question here is, how close do you believe most employees in your organization are to being ready for the next role? Less than 10% away, 10 to 25% away, 25 to 40% away, more than 40% away, or unsure? I'm aware that this might seem a little bit unclear to you. So if you have no idea, you don't want to take a guess, feel free to vote unsure. But again, this is something that we analyzed. And we're going to go through it in just a moment. So please cast a vote. And more of you have voted this time than last time. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I do see some questions coming through the Q&A, so I really appreciate that as well. Nick and Pavel, we'll have save some time at the end. We'll jump into them at the end once we get through everything. Okay, I will end the poll and share the results, which should be appearing on your screen right now. How close do you believe employees are to the next role? 35% of you voted 25 to 40% away. Second highest was 10 to 25% away, with the almost 30% of you voting for that. And we basically got a bunch of votes across the remaining results. But drum roll, please. How far away are employees to their next role? 23%, so not far away, was technically I think the first option there on the poll. I think the highest vote getter was the 25 to 40% metric there. So basically, we analyzed this. So we analyzed our career path data, and we came up with the average career path distance of 23%, which is the average skill gap to the next role. Average gap to the next role. That's a typo. Apologies. So in essence, most employers are closer to career progression than you would think. And Pavel, I wanted to ask you a question here. What do you? It's more from the organizational side. What do you think is stopping organizations from realizing that actually, hey, their people are closer to the next role than you think?
Yeah, that's one of the other fundamental questions, because we know how career progression is important, especially for younger generations. We are talking about data all the time, about skills, data about skills and all that. But I would say that the quality of managers is something that needs to be taken into consideration here as well. How good or how bad managers are in leading the careers of their people. I've always been of an opinion that it is your leader, it is your manager who should be your best career advisor in your company. So if we have bad managers, bad leaders that don't care about it at all, then that may be one of the factors why organizations do not notice how close many employees are to progression. But again, bad managers are bad because they don't have necessary skills and competencies. So we come back to square one, which is skills of people and competencies of people. We talked about data, and yeah, there is noise in the data in many organizations. Like, data is fragmented because data about skills are in one system, about performance in the other system, outdated job profiles, inconsistent assessments. All these contributes to the fact that people don't know. Organizations basically don't know who knows what and who is ready for promotion. And
Mhm.
there is also siloed mindset of some manager or some organizations that I won't allow my best performer to be promoted because I don't want to lose this guy from my team. So siloed mindset, I would call that, is also
Mhm.
partly to blame in some organizations.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
It comes. Yeah. Sorry, Nick. Go on.
no, I was going to say it could also be budgetary restraints, so you can't promote everyone,
Oh yeah.
despite their
Mhm.
skills. So this can be one portion of the fact here. So if you have an average career path distance of 23% and say one is at 5% distance and performing highly all over, and the other is at 27, then which you're going to promote. So you can't have
Mhm.
everyone can be promoted, but you do what you can with what you have. So I don't think it's obviously negative that everyone is 23% because it's a decent distance, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, knowing that and knowing where they can improve so they can be promoted is, I think, the positive here.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, well, let's stick with let's stick with you, Nick. So we did the same thing here with the same metric basically, where we sort of took the aggregate number for the sort of all the data on our platform came down to 23%, but we took the same thing and broke it down by the same departments as before, but this time we've included quality assurance. And as you can see, the progression typically varies widely across departments. Question here again for you is why the big variance in data here?
And what we're looking at here is career path distance, meaning how far they're going away from their original career path, right? So
Hmm.
transitioning into another path. So when I look at it, marketing and sales makes perfect sense for me to have a large gap or where they go is distant from
Yep.
where they're at. You don't always have a clear career progression in marketing or sales. You might start out as an SDR, and then some people will go to AE or account executive, and then others will go to operations, and then others
Hmm.
might go to other sections of sales. So it's not always a clear linear path that you take. And marketing as well. So you might start as a content writer and end up in product marketing, or you might end up in SEO. So
Hmm.
it makes sense that you would have these big swings in your career progression. With technology, you're usually a junior developer in one technology stack, and you go deeper into that stack, right? So a front end developer usually doesn't transfer to back end. Back end doesn't usually transfer to front end. It happens, but it's more rare than something in
Hmm.
sales or marketing where you shift.
Hmm.
The surprising one to me is human resources because I figure, you might start out in recruitment, but you might end up as a generalist or later on in HRBP outside of recruitment. But uh, this is the data I'm not sure with that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
bit of an anomaly to me. But the others make
yeah,
sense. Technology, engineering, short transitions or rare lateral transitions, quality
yeah,
assurance also.
yeah.
All of
Deeper
them
and
make
deeper into the
sense.
knowledge. Yeah,
Exactly,
deeper,
exactly. They
deeper
make
into knowledge.
sense.
But I mean, the same you could say for human resource because the common path would be sort of like a um, junior HR, like HRBP sort of mid. You see this on even in on people's job roles, it's going from this junior mid to senior. So it's a pretty
Yeah.
like sort of straightforward career pathway for the most part, I would say. But yeah, I see your point as well. So um, we will move along, and we only do have a couple of more data points to share here. And I do see the questions in the Q&A. So again, if you have any more questions, fire them in there. We'll get to them at the end. This metric here, we're looking at additional skills, which I mistakenly said optional skills before, and we will clear that up one more time. So, on average, every employees inside Skill Panel have 3.2 additional skills on average. So, basically, what this means is that many employees hold valuable skills outside their role. So, just to be clear again, additional skills are skills that are not relevant to a given job position. So, that was when I talked about this Photoshop and Java developer example. And the question here for you, Pavel, is why is it beneficial for employees to have additional skills? And why is that also beneficial, I'd say, from an organizational perspective? What's the benefit for an organization to see that an employee has skills outside of their knowledge, like for their job role?
Yeah, a Java developer skilled in Photoshop can do some great paintings on there.
Yeah.
That's always a benefit. Yeah, but mm, I've always been a fan or a big proponent of wider rather than narrower range of skills because the basic fact about the current world is that it's changing so fast, both technologically, but also in economy, in how society is changing, that to be too much focused on one area uh, is a bit of a risky thing, not only because of automation and the risk of being replaced by AI that everybody's worried about. Um, it really helps in a career progression because whether you are about vertical movement, about upward progression. So if you are promoted from junior to senior to then managerial and directorial roles, then the nature of the problems that you will have to encounter every day, the nature of the problems, it demands a diverse repertoire of tools. It's not only
Mhm.
technical tools, but then these are social skills. So it really helps to have this broader picture rather than just being narrowly focused. The same for horizontal movement. If you want to reskill, it is really beneficial to have a good grasp or at least a decent grasp of adjacent skills beyond your immediate area. Um, yeah, I've now a book came to my mind. One of the greatest book about professional self-development or professional development that I've read on the topic is a book by David Epstein, as if I pronounced the name correctly. It's called Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. It's about this. The guy gives a lot of examples from business to sports to art to
Mhm.
everyday life. It's really good thing to be T-shaped as they call it. So
Mhm.
I'm not advocating to be a jack of all trades and master of none. You need to be a specialist in some area, but additionally to have some interest, some curiosity in other areas. That's really helpful and practical, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah.
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 I would
Nick.
say that the additional skills, knowing where these additional skills sit in the company is beneficial for workforce agility. So you have a project working. So maybe Justin is working on a slide deck for marketing, and maybe Pavel worked with slides and worked with some graphic design in the past, and he doesn't do that now, but he has these skills. So how do we know that Pavel has these skills and he can help with Justin's slide deck that he's creating for marketing? You don't know unless you have these skills rated or visibility on these skills within the company. So something like this is useful for the organization as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this question here from Angelica right now. Are you talking about transferable skills? So I figured we might jump on this one right now because we're on this topic. So who wants to tackle this, Pavel or Nick? Are we talking about transferable skills? In essence, yes, but additional skills are not necessarily that they're all skills. The way that we track it, you can track all skills. That's why I use this example of Photoshop, even though it probably won't be very relevant in the workforce space. But I don't know, Nick, do you want to tackle this?
It's not necessarily transferable skills. It's just skills that you have outside of your role, which the company can use, and maybe their interests that you have outside of work. So if you have some interest in data visualization, you uh, produce. Sorry, I had the question and answer open and I started
Oh,
to read
sorry,
the
yeah,
next.
others
It's
transferable
okay.
skills.
I
Yeah,
closed it. It's no problem. But maybe
yeah.
you work in data visualization and you have outside of work projects where you're doing this. It's an interest of yours. The company can see, and maybe if you do want to transfer into that area, the company sees that you already have these skills, and if that kind of role comes open, they can find you as well. So yes
Mhm.
and no, in that
Yeah,
sometimes they're transferable, sometimes they're not connected with your role or what role you want to be in it at all. So yeah.
yeah. Um, I haven't forgotten about the questions in there. We will come back to them. It's just because we're on the topic. I thought we'd jump into that one there. So moving along, our final section of the report is all about succession planning. So we kind of dipped our toe in this topic a little bit throughout the discussion. But what we're looking at here is are critical roles secure? So we have 62% overall successor coverage. So basically, our takeaway succession pipelines are incomplete for many critical roles because there's 38% that are not. And the question here for you, Nick, is what risks do organizations face when critical roles lack successor coverage?
So this really introduces fragility into the organization. So if these people leave, you have a long ramp up to fill this spot, or maybe you start hiring immediately and you take people that you wouldn't have taken if you had hired before, or maybe you upskill the person before. So knowing that you have these gaps and starting to try to fill them preemptively rather than after the fact can help with your making your organization anti-fragile, as Talib Nassim calls it. But yeah, so we're trying to improve the fragility. So it everything becomes more risky when you have these critical roles where you have no one internally who can fill this. No one has the knowledge. So you have some software backend that everyone uses, and only one guy knows how to or one lady knows how to fix anything in it. That person leaves and it breaks. What do you do? You're in
Mhm.
real big trouble. So it really introduces fragility into the organization. So it's a really big gap. But yeah, so preemptively trying to fill these gaps by reskilling, upskilling, or even hiring if necessary, is a good idea.
Yep, yep, yep. And yeah, I think the point is that it can be tackled from many different approaches, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the final point we have here is taking from a sort of slightly different angle where we're looking at in sort of internal successor coverage. This is kind of the opposite side of the scale. So this metric here is talking that we something that we labeled stagnation risk, which is basically 9% of high fit employees have no viable internal career path. And I'll just add some context for this. Basically, what we analyzed was employees with 80% job position fit or higher. Um, 9% of those had no viable internal career path. So seemingly low number, but still another area where we believe is important to address. So basically, the takeaway here is some high potential employees lacking viable career paths. And Pavel, what's the danger here with your high value employees if they have nowhere to go? What are the implications for that on your organization?
Well, the obvious danger is that they will leave sooner or later. But I wouldn't say that it is the only danger. Maybe even greater danger is when they stay and they are demotivated and they spoil the atmosphere around them. They impact the whole team, and
Hmm.
their opinion is heard because they are usually the highly skilled guys. So they are listened. They are someone whose opinions are important. So if they spread negativity, it is a disastrous thing for the morale. Um, I would also add one nuance that these highly skilled people that they not they don't need to be necessarily high performers because you can imagine um, someone who is highly skilled, but because of he or she doesn't agree with the company's back to office policy, can be demotivated. But let's assume for the sake of the argument that they are the same people.
Hmm.
Um, what organizations can do about it? First thing that comes to my mind is think about professional development not only as a vertical upward movement. Um, I've spent years in IT recruitment. I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of software developers. So every time I was asking during the job interviews, why would you like to leave? Why are you thinking about leaving? And in 80%, the answer was, I'm not having enough professional development opportunities in this company anymore. And they were not meaning upward mobility. They were not meaning managerial or team lead positions. They were meaning what they meant was some additional project, some side project, even 10% of their time devoted to something else to prevent them from boredom, to allow them to be in touch with new technologies. So other project opportunities, lateral movements, horizontal movements. That's the easiest way to offer something more than just upward vertical movement, which is limited by nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
Uh,
used this analogy quickly. I've used this analogy before, which one of our customers mentioned the career path should be more akin to a rock climbing wall than a ladder, because a ladder just you go straight up, basically straight up, whereas a rock climbing wall you have many different paths to get to the top. It might be a bit corny, but I guess it's kind of it's relevant when we're talking about this point here. Nick, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say that this stagnation risk is a thing, but I think that some of these people who end up with high fit and no viable internal career path in the way that we stated could be that they had two paths. They went to either they want to, so in tech especially, they can go to engineering manager, or they go the other way and be an individual contributor. And where do you go? You end up as an architect and you have very high position fit because you've been doing this one thing, and that's where they want to stay. So it's not always a risk. And it can
Hmm.
be that just you have some people who have reached the top of this career ladder, and that's where they end up. Um,
Hmm.
and it's years and years of experience in that role. So it's not always a negative, but yeah, you don't want the senior developer to not have anywhere to go, right? Because
Yeah.
senior is it's deep, but it's not that deep
Yeah, but
in the
that, it,
career
like,
path.
it comes back to what Pavel said as well, because
Yeah,
once you do reach the top, then you need to think about, okay, where could you at least keep the work interesting, working on other
exactly.
projects, learning something new. So this is where this part of the topic, the
Yeah.
discussion comes in. Um, Okay, we will jump into our Q&A because there are quite a few questions here, and I'm going to go sort of top to bottom. The first question here is from Alice, which is, do you have any examples of core, optional, and additional skills for each of those business areas? And I think the easiest way to answer this question, I'll take this one, guys. We have an account that I can share, like a walkthrough of our platform, which basically shows that. But to answer your question, yes, we do. We have these skills available. The easiest way is just to see this. So I'll share a link with you, and if anyone else is interested, you can email us as well for requests for access to that. It's available on our website as well, but I'll share that with you, Alice, directly, so you've got that. Um, Next question here is from Rosie. There's a few from Rosie. So the first one from Rosie: have you mapped the perception gap in senior leadership? And the quick answer to that is we mapped everybody, as I said. So every person who's mapped a skill from a self-assessment and from a manager assessment was contributing that metric. We don't have an individual metric on senior leadership, but it is food for thought, and it's something that we certainly can collect next time around. But for this report, there isn't an individual metric on that one. But as I said, every single employee, every single person that has a skill panel account, that was contributing to that metric. I promise I will get to a question for one of you, Pavel and Nick, but I thought I could answer those two things that we
No,
were
it's okay.
responsible for the report.
Perfectly okay.
What's the definition of gap to the next role? If there are significant gaps in core skills within roles, why are so many people closer to the next role than perceived? Nick, maybe do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, it's I think there's two factors. It's one is the core skills don't differ that much from the next seniority level all the time. It's levels to those core skills. So you probably move from, if you're a developer, say, you move from a mid to a senior level in a role, and you're using most of the same skills, just slightly higher levels of these skills. So you're more efficient with these skills. Maybe you have some few additional skills, but the number of new skills you're needing to progress in these roles is less than from, say, a junior to a mid. So this is
Mhm.
probably a large contribution to that. Um, and the other one is what I mentioned earlier when this question came
Yep.
up is budgetary constraints. You can't give everyone a promotion to a new seniority level whenever you want. As much as you would like to, you can't always do that. So a
Yep.
lot of times you're forced to consider these factors, and you promote whoever is closest.
Sure.
That makes
Sure.
sense.
Okay. And last one here from Rosie Pavel. I'll ask this one to you. So,
Mm.
as roles are increasingly AI enabled and skills required are expected to change rapidly over the next few years, do you have any insight from your research in that area?
Well, it depends a lot on the adoption of AI in organizations, and we know that it's not a rosy picture at all. I mean, companies are buying subscriptions to AI, but they're not really upskilling or reskilling people in that. We've had a big discussion recently about AI in software developers testing, and we all know that software developers use AI heavily, but when it comes to testing their AI, their development skills with the help of AI, a lot of organizations does not allow developers during the tests to use AI. So I think that the pace of AI adoption is too slow to be able to have this data at the moment. So correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but we don't have reliable data on how well AI skills integrate into this skills picture that we're currently having.
I don't know that they're all even well defined yet, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
skills that exist, it's hard to say. So working with agents is one thing. Working with cursor and then just having AI assist you with code is another. So how defined are these skills? I don't think they're all clearly defined yet. I think it's all moving so fast that a better picture will come out in time, of what the skills are and what skills people should know. So yeah, AI is moving extremely fast. So
It just brings up something I did to mind. Jakob, our CEO, published an article a couple of weeks ago. It's available on our blog, so just go to SkillPanel. You can click on resources and toggle all of the articles. It's something about how quickly skills are changing in the AI space, and in AI particularly. Obviously, the biggest part of that now, which is the hot topic, is MCP, and he talks about how that progression has changed so dramatically. So, to your point, Nick, something that was considered the pinnacle of AI work in January is now somehow out of date. In
prompt
yeah,
engineering, right? Yeah.
prompt engineering is
It's
now
still
sort
a
of
thing,
irrelevant
but it's
because
less.
you know what I mean. It was the big thing in January when we're talking months, not years. This is like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
craziest thing
yeah.
about AI. So, um, I'll make this as an open question for both you, Pavel and Nick. What features can we expect in Skill Panel in 2026? Nick, you can
I'll
go.
start because I would say that because we have two platforms, right? We have the technical assessments and then we also have the skills management. In the technical assessment area, we have um, tests for AI competency. So coding with AI assistance, so using agents to code. We're working on that. AI or more plagiarism detection, a better plagiarism detection than we currently have. We have some, but improved plagiarism detection and displaying it on the candidates page or where you would see uh, the candidate's name. So you know it before you have to dig in too deep, whether or not you should have suspicions about a candidate. So those are the two big things in the technical assessments and the skill panel area. So skills management, we're working on the development activity center. So using uh, for learning and development essentially. So you connecting mentors with projects, so the mentor can learn that the people with working with the mentor can learn. Um, it's just a very large project, the Development Activity Center. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's tracking attendance. Everything is involved here. I don't know if you have more to say about the Development Activity Center.
I'd like most it's the learning piece basically. So we are working very hard on the sort of the learning element for employees. So basically what will be available inside Skill Panel is the skill visibility, the skill gap analysis. We have a bunch of other features from like a talent management perspective, but the final piece is this sort of learning element. So how does this all connect together within how to improve, what do I need to do as an individual to sort of progress in my career. This is the big piece. The other big one that just springs to mind, and this should be available actually by the end of this year, hopefully, is an updated employee profile. So we're adding some additional metrics there as well. Basically, just to uh, make it even sort of more enticing, exciting for employees to sort of care about what they're doing with their careers. So we have some sort of gamification features where there's sort of points for just doing certain things, for taking certain trainings, for reassessing one's skills, these sorts of things. So this is this updated employee profile, which we're hoping for the end of this year. And yeah, as we said, the development activities and the AI assessments are the two big ones for the beginning of next year.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic about performance management module and job evaluation modules that should start
Oh,
Q1 next year, because that would allow us to have great insight into whether skills really contribute to performance. We believe they are, and we hope to show it with data next year.
the other thing I just thought about is the MCP. So
Yeah,
we're working on developing an MCP so you can talk and ask questions about the skills within your company and get information directly. So you write out a plain
And
text
suggestions.
question, who is skilled in this, or whatever you want. So compare this team to this team, and it will just give you the data. So that's something else we're working on. I see Dave asked another
Yeah,
question.
just to follow up. Yeah, could you just elaborate a little bit further, Nick, on that one?
Yeah, so we currently have screen recording that tracks actions within the tab. So whether or not they're copy pasting, whether or not they're switching tabs, things like this. And this will be visible on the candidates page as well. So before you even go in, you don't have to go into the screen recording. You know this candidate copy pasted 3 times, 4 times throughout the test, or this one switched tabs, took screenshots of the test, things like this. It's just directly visible on the test, what the candidate's done.
Yep. Yep. Um, I will close all of those Q&A. I've left this page open on purpose because there's two things here. There's our
Cheers,
website
Dave.
and yeah, thanks, Dave. And there's an email here. So Dave or anyone else, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop an email to us at hello at skillpanel.com. If you want to speak to Nick directly, Nick at skillpanel.com, I believe.
Yep,
Pavel, PZD, is it, at
that's
skillpanel.com?
correct.
PZD. I am JLS at skillpanel.com. As I mentioned, you will be receiving a link to the recording tomorrow. We're also publishing this report tomorrow, but for everyone who's been watching on Zoom, you've already got access to this report, so it's there in your inbox. For those of you who joined us on LinkedIn, thank you very much. Check your email tomorrow. You'll have a link to the report landing page and this recording. But now that we are basically at the hour mark, I'd like to say a very big thank you, first of all, to you, Pavel and Nick, for your insights shared today. Appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody for getting involved. I really appreciate all of the questions and the kind words here in the comments. So thanks very much and have a great day, everybody. See you next time.
thanks everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.